morning. Welcome to the Old School podcast about the American education system, its traits, its qualities, its quirks, its quizzical natures, its foibles, its peccadillos, and possibly even solutions insofar as you know the solutions. Good morning here, Dr. Bourgeois.
Good afternoon, Herr Miller. Are we like pretending that it's morning even though it's 4:06 p.m. Central Time?
I didn't know I was saying morning, but we could have gone with it. But now we have stopped down the program to give the listener a peek behind the curtain that this is actually afternoon. It's not even Saturday. It's typically when we record. It's
a work week. I know, because normally during the podcast I'm drinking coffee, and now I'm drinking a Moscow Mule, if you know what that is.
Yes. Just tell me you're not using sugar-free ginger ale.
No, it has sugar in it.
Okay, good.
I don't have ginger beer, so I'm stuck with ginger ale. It's not bad, but I do have the copper mug, and that really makes the experience.
Do you think the mug and the properties that make up that mug somehow lend to the drink?
Yeah.
Or is it just aesthetics?
Did you take chemistry, Herr Miller?
No.
I think it's chemistry or physics, but
Did you take chemistry?
It's sort of like a type of a conductor. I don't know, but it actually sweats on the outside, which it has the effect of melting the ice and warming things, not making it more cold. So you get all this ice and lime and vodka and all of that, and they kind of meld together, and then you have the cool mug, which by itself you could drink anything in it, but that's the experience. Moscow Mule.
I don't know anything about that chemistry. I was told some time ago to be wary of mugs presented to you by students made with lead-based paint, but outside of that, that's about as much chemistry as I have any kind of understanding of.
Well, I never studied it. I managed to get through high school with like 1 year of biology, no physics, no chemistry. I don't know if there are any other sciences. Why would I know? I didn't study them in high school.
Mm-hmm. My favorite comedian, Nate Bargatze, talked about going to a math class, and all it had on the front of the textbook was math. So that's basically the kind of math I took in high school. It didn't have any kind of specialization, just math across the top. So
you're like you're like a sweat hog, weren't you?
as it relates to mathematics, yes. Okay. So, but anyway, so well, we have various things going on in the world of education. One of the things that has made the news has to do with strikes. Now, as it happens, it's not in this country, although there are certainly plenty of examples in recent years of strikes happening in this country with teachers.
Teachers striking?
Yes, teachers striking. And the current one is in London.
Oh.
And we will not endeavor to speak on that because
we won't.
You can if you want, if you feel like you got a grasp of the issues.
Well, I haven't read the news story, but one big union is what I say.
Okay. Well, I guess that's where we can start. Now, the thing is that we come from two states that are extremely pro-union. You from Michigan. You also one of the millions who have fled Michigan. I don't know if the two are related, but nevertheless, you from Michigan, me from the great state of Maryland. And did you have any experiences as a student? I mean, did teachers ever strike? Was it something that you ever came across at any point in your school days?
No, but I had as a teacher, and actually as a teacher in Oregon, in Ohio, and in Michigan. I was certainly aware of the union presence, and while I was in Oregon, I think I was I was coaching. That's what it was. I think I was coaching, or maybe I was a student teacher, but there was a strike going on at that time.
You were a strike breaker?
No, no. So,
Okay,
I mean, my
okay.
father was a teacher, so I wasn't going to cross the line to be a substitute teacher or something, whatever the heck I was. So no, I stepped aside. I think I had a tennis coaching position too, and so I had to vacate that for a few weeks.
Do
And
you recall the reasons for the strike?
um, no, I don't know if it had to do with pay. That's sometimes that becomes important. I bet it had to do with retirement and benefits, because come to think of it, they did really, really well in Oregon on those retirement benefits. It's shocking how well they did. So I bet they were working on that. And in my wisdom, I left Oregon and moved to Texas.
Well, our retirement plan here in Texas is not anything to sneeze at, so
I was about to reach for my Kleenex. I can tell you, Herr Miller,
all right.
if we had put in our 25 plus in Oregon, we'd be sipping something different than Moscow mules. That's all I can say.
Well, one might suggest that the whatever uptick in retirement pensions in Oregon is more than taken up by the elevated cost of living in Oregon. So, are you sure? I mean, your father did quite well in retirement. He seemed to be pretty jolly most of the time, and so maybe he was living pretty high off the hog. So
Yeah, I think that it's probably quite a bit better. But you're right. I mean, as far as the overall economy, I mean, that's a whole different question. I don't know that either of us can talk about economic policy like that. But
yeah.
but strikes, we're all about it. I mean, you're from Maryland, didn't you participate in a strike as well?
I did not, although to be fair, my time in Maryland was not as a teacher, but as a student and as a college student learning to be a teacher as a substitute. The greatest, the kind of the more indelible memories I have of unions in Maryland are not necessarily positive ones. And it's mainly seen through a child's eye, but, my father worked for a steel company in Baltimore, and, they went on strike, and I think it was around Christmas, and the strikers were trying to push for, as I recall, although I was quite young at the time, but better wages, better benefits, not unlike what those Oregon teachers were striking about. And my recollection, and what I remember my father talking about, my father just being upset about, rich union guys telling, working class stiffs, hanging there a little bit longer without a paycheck, and again, this could be colored by how I perceived the strike. And my perception is that it happened around Christmas because Christmas was canceled.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah, it was a pretty rough month or so, as I recall. Like I said, it's been a while, but I think that kind of colored my perception of unions. And it's not to cast aspersions on unions as a whole. They've been a very necessary and vital part of the protection of workers, particularly in the face of kind of rapacious, attitudes by the owners and operators of industry. The question is, though, do you think that a teacher has an obligation not to strike?
No.
No?
Well, no. I mean, if they're part of the union, and in many places you don't have a choice.
Right.
You're in the union. I know that's how it was in Ohio and Michigan, but
Sure.
no, you go along. I mean, what is the alternative?
Well, no, I mean, the part of the alternative has to be to consider the impact that it has on students. One of the things that have come out of the COVID era, and I say that with the fervent hope that we are out of that era by now, But I mean, I think part of the kind of the takeaways that we have is the degree to which the disruption in student education has put them woefully behind where they were projected to be not a mere 3 years ago. And when you talk about whether someone has the right to strike, or they should strike, not the right to strike, but I mean that they should strike. I think part of it has to do with weighing what is perceived to be the repercussions of it. What are the consequences of a bunch of teachers walking out for an extended period of time?
Well, I've pulled up the story from 1987 in Eugene, Oregon. So where I was, I must have been student teaching there and coaching, but it was a month long. So that definitely, and so they were using replacement teachers, and that's the nice way of saying it,
Sure.
for a month. And I'll read a little bit of this. It said, tensions grew after replacement teachers were hired last week. Teachers arrested for disorderly conduct this week tried to thwart the hiring of non-union replacement teachers with tactics including blocking the path of a bus with replacements aboard. So it was I told you, I grew up on the rough streets of Eugene.
I think it's the only time it's ever been characterized as such,
Yeah.
In
So
general.
I mean, why don't you answer that question? Because I mean, as it, I guess if you're in a union, what are you going to hold out because you're worried about teaching and having students miss your wisdom for a couple of weeks?
Well, I think if it's only a couple of weeks, I mean, and also if you're in a state where it's kind of mandatory that you're a part of the union, I mean, the decision is taken out of your hands. You don't have a choice, and so
Right.
There's that aspect of it, But I'm torn about it. We live in a state where teachers do not have the right to strike. I mean, I guess they could, but technically, it would be verboten for them to kind of just walk off walk out of the classroom. And I sometimes am torn by every time I hear about strikes. I think the first thing I want to hear about is what is the issues about which they're striking. Because if we're talking about capricious demands, then, or at least capricious in the sense of not being what I consider to be urgent, then you have to question, the idea of them striking. But I do wonder what I would do. I mean, if I was in a union state, if I was back home in Maryland and the teachers went out on strike, I guess I'm going home. Now, I don't know if I'd be out there picketing. I guess it depends on the issue and what I feel and think about the issue. But there is the idea in U.S. history, the notion about whether or not certain professions should strike. Now, typically, it has to do with safety, public safety,
right?
And so perhaps the most recent example was about the notion of the air traffic controllers back in the early '80s. You may recall.
That's the most recent example.
It's the most recent example of a kind of a showdown between government workers.
Okay, it's memorable for us, but we're really old.
That's true. There is another I'm going to bring up because it stands in contrast. But Ronald Reagan, president of the United States at the time, air traffic controllers going out on strike. Reagan threatened the air traffic controllers that he would fire every single person who walked off the job. And in doing so, he basically echoes an early political mentor, Calvin Coolidge, who, when he was busting up a police strike in Boston in 1919, suggested that nobody has the right to strike against the public safety. So there's the idea that certain occupations cannot strike simply because of what it would mean societally if they do. Now, not coincidentally, those unions are some of the strongest unions around. And whatever the police union wants, or whatever air traffic controllers or GSA or the other unions that are related to government workers, those folks tend to get it because you can't have them walking off on the job. Now, recently, railroad workers were going to go out on strike. And President Biden basically said, you can't do that. Now, for President Biden, the concern was economic. The concern was a question of the availability of goods, the continuation of the economy, trying to get the economy going in the right direction. Eventually, the administration and the union hashed out an agreement. But President Biden's initial reaction is you cannot go on strike. The impact would be too great. So there's an idea that you can't strike if it's against the public safety. It has been made most recently, although I'm sure it's been done before, that you can't strike because of the economic impact it might have on the country. And so we now come back to teachers. The notion of whether teachers should be allowed to go on strike or not. Do you think that there's any consideration that should be made towards the impact on students?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with states like Texas, they wrote that into their laws, and that's the way it is. So I'm just talking about if you're in one of those states with unions, I don't think there's any reason to. I'm sure some people do go back, and it's a personal choice.
Right.
But I think it is important to think the long term. They're negotiating usually for things that will affect them and their kids and their retirements and all kinds of things. So you're kind of weighing that with the damage potentially for missing school days.
Mm-hmm. So with this idea about whether or not teachers should strike, there's another element about unions and about education that often get discussed. And perhaps more so than the strikes, it represents, at least to some people's mind, the bigger threat. And that is what unions do to protect bad teachers. And I can't remember if I told the story or not. I'm sure I must have, but you can stop me if you.
I'll stop you right in the middle of your sentence. Stop.
The problem is you and I have talked so much privately, then it might get a bit confusing. But, I was in college. It was a public university, state university, little note or prestige, but it meant well. So I had an economics class and I had a teacher. And that teacher was, to put it politely, horrible.
This is like a university level class, is that right?
University level class.
So they're called professors here, Miller.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so I think that deep down inside we're all teachers, but whatever. If you care to make kind of value judgments.
You have that degree, you call yourself a professor.
Okay. Well, anyway, so at the end of the school year, he walks out. And in comes in graduate assistants to hand out evaluations.
Ah.
And I remember when the graduate assistant got to me to hand me the copy of the evaluation, I said that I'm not filling that out. And the young lady in question seemed rather perplexed. And I told her, I said, assuming he did not get this bad overnight, this guy's been bad for a while. And yet he was still my teacher. So it suggests that there's absolutely no value whatsoever to me filling out this evaluation.
What does that mean?
Was still, huh?
I mean, they do it every term, every course.
Yes, I know. I understand.
And so you're saying that he's had other ones, so you don't have to do it?
My point is that I cannot have been the first person that filled out an evaluation talking about how horrible this guy was.
I mean, but this is not a special one. I mean, they didn't just have to hand one out. They did it for every last professor you had.
Oh yeah, I understand.
Okay, so your logic is a bit faulty. So you're saying you'll never fill out a evaluation of a professor on principle.
I'm not going to fill out an evaluation. Certainly, I mean, I don't find value in it, and so I don't think I would do it. I don't think I did that many of them, unless I really liked the individual, and then I would want to kind of make that known.
So you just hand it back.
Yeah, that's what I did. I handed it back.
Oh, no. You wait till everybody's done, then you hand it. You don't want to have a moment with this poor woman. Just doing her job.
And it wasn't about her. I made it very clear it wasn't about her. It was about the professor.
So this cantankerous spirit of yours goes way back.
It does.
I'm not taking this on general principle. Um,
Yes.
there are a couple of purposes. I'm yelling of those evaluations. It's also informative. I mean, the professors read and they get to learn the pulse of their students, know what they're doing well, what they're not. So it's not just evaluative; it has another function as well.
I'm saying it doesn't really matter what the function is of that particular survey. It doesn't matter because the same teacher with the same degree of incompetence is still in front of me, and I got charged the same amount of money as I did for the teacher who was good. One of the knocks on unions is that it is a vehicle through which bad teachers are protected. And you go to any school and you can talk to any teacher and they can tell you which ones probably have no business being in the classroom. But because of the fact that they may be considered vested, may be considered, whatever term you want to use, they are protected by union policies. Now, this gets into the question about what the point of union is. Now, certainly you could say that every year, all the time, there are things that unions help teachers with, to deal with, to manage, to overcome, to move out of the way as far as an obstacle. But beyond that, there is still the issue that bad people are protected. Is there any validity to the question of unions in light of that kind of a stance?
Sounds like this is a political debate up on the stage here, Miller.
I'm just asking questions. I'm curious.
Well, we would have to have some data to show if they're keeping more bad teachers up in Union states than down here in Texas. I think that everybody has due process, and the union is not trying. I mean, if you ask them, they wouldn't say, "Oh yeah, we want to keep bad teachers. That's why we're here." They're going to say, "We want to ensure that the teachers, good or bad, have due process." And if they're going to be fired or transferred or anything that affects their jobs, they need to have a process that's fair. So they're ensuring process. It's not about keeping bad teachers. So I don't. I know that there is an impression that it's in Union states it's hard to get rid of teachers. Teachers do have a lot more power. And the dynamic between the teacher and, say, the school administration is quite different. I mean, if you sit in a faculty meeting up north and down here, it's very, very different. The teachers have a lot more control and say in how the schools run in Union states.
You do see that sometimes. Every once in a while, you'll see it where a person from a predominantly union state will come down to Texas to teach. Or just for whatever reason, because their spouse had a job or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I got a friend of mine. He's a colleague. He is from Long Island. And I will tell you, you have not been berated like you would be by somebody with a Long Island accent, with a Long Island level of indignation, with the kind of indignation that comes from a previous career completely protected by union rules and guidelines and what have you. And then you come into the wild west of Texas, where basically they're trying to get it with the administration, and I say administration with a big A, talking about everybody. But there's the idea that, try to milk as much as you can out of the teachers without paying as possible. You're going to get an education about what life is like for teachers in other places.
Oh yeah, and I mean, as far as teachers and their time during the day, I can recall being in Ohio, and it became a problem that when a teacher was absent, that they would have other teachers cover their class. And I'm sure they had a shortage of substitutes. It's not, and I'm sure it's even more a problem now. But that became something that you almost expected every day. Oh, where do I need to go? Boom. And so you're not getting your planning period, which is something that is in your contract. So that was a union type thing. I remember, having to, because it really bothered me, to have to suddenly leave my planning, go cover a class, and it was annoying. And so I went and talked to the representation or the representative about something like that. But you wouldn't, I don't think, who would you talk to in Texas about that?
Well, in Texas, they have something called UEA, the United Education Association or something.
Associations, right.
Yes. And so the association is kind of a polite way of saying union without saying union. And so there is a UEA rep in the school. But I would think of that title as perfunctory. It really doesn't have any kind of real authority. If the UEA rep were to stride in, first of all, they probably would never stride into the principal's office. They probably would be body blocked by the administrative assistant first. But there's just not that level of confidence that a UEA rep can walk into anybody's office the way that a union rep could, say, in my home state of Maryland or Jersey or New York or places like that. And so you wouldn't get anything done. Here in Texas, I get emails every day. I get emails from kids. Every once in a while I get an email from parent. I get emails every day from colleagues. I get spam email every day. And every day I get an email from this one particular person in our school that tries to get people to fill in for classes that have not been covered by substitutes.
Right.
And I think any complaining of it would just be met with a shrug of the shoulders and like, what are you going to do?
So do they pay teachers for that extra?
Typically, they'll do one of two things. They will either pay in money, although it's never a great deal, but I mean, it's some money, or it can be paid if there's another category, I can't remember. It may have to do with like time off or what have you that you can get it paid into. So there are options available. I would not say that these options offset the hassle that it is to give up your planning period, but there is technically something that's being offered by the school.
Okay. Yeah, I never liked it because, it's hard enough to manage your own class, and
Right.
you train them and they are properly afraid of you or at least know what you expect. But then you go into another room and you're just sort of sitting there and it's not a fun thing, and we're talking about a different type of school than we have here, where I was up in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Bit on the rough around the edges side.
Right.
So you've never had an opportunity to strike?
No, I went from being in the military, which on the whole discourages things like that.
Is that right?
Historically, you get into pretty choppy waters if you start suggesting that the military should step away from their duties. But and then the bulk of my teaching career, if not my training, has been in Texas. And so, my understanding of unions is secondary, perhaps tertiary in its exposure. I just simply do not have a firsthand experience. And I think that's one of the reasons why I have these questions. I have these questions about, are unions a good thing as far as teaching goes? Can it sometimes cause more problems than it solves? And I think that's the kind of thing that tends to get talked about the most from the outside, pundits on television, news, and that sort of thing.
Well, there's a whole category of schools, charter schools particularly, and probably private schools as well, that have at-will employees. So they don't necessarily even have a continuing contract. So you can be removed for practically any reason as long as it's not a bad reason.
Right.
So you have, just being in a traditional public school, you have some protections that you wouldn't have because you have a contract.
It does put you in rather precarious waters. Now, I would say it's the same waters that any other working man and woman might have to deal with. I had a teacher complain to me one time, and he said that they could just fire you, whatever. It doesn't matter. They could just fire you. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. But again, at the same time, many people face this. Many people work in places where they could get fired, at a moment's notice. And so the notion that there would be teachers that fall into that program, it would not be terribly surprising, I wouldn't think.
So what does that mean for the people in jolly old England? Because you started with that and you left them hanging a little bit.
Well, I left them hanging because I don't know the intricacies of why they're striking. Now, I mean, the question is that, does it do more harm than good if the teachers are out for an extended period of time? And it wouldn't the harm would not necessarily be visited upon the teacher. I guess it depends upon what happens with their pay when they are on strike. But I think that the benefit goes to the teacher and the consequences oftentimes go on the student.
Right.
And because of the kind of the mix direction of effects there, I think it's something that has to be thought about a little bit more than just saying, well, we have the right to go on strike, we should go on strike.
Yeah. So you would equate teachers with air traffic controllers?
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, air traffic controllers, of course, they present potentially a very real danger, physical danger, a life danger to people if they're not on their jobs. Whereas teachers, you don't necessarily have a question of life or death, but you certainly have a question of development, mental development, behavioral development. And right now, a lot of people throughout the country are dealing with the consequences of a kind of a state imposed strike on the schools where you were not allowed to be in the building. The kids couldn't be in the building. You were doing things on Zoom, that sort of thing. And there's been repercussions from that is seen across the board. Even, the vaulted Finnish school system has been struggling a little bit in the last couple of years. And so it's not something that's just seen within the United States. It's seen elsewhere as well. And, at the same time, you think about the problems that we face in education and, what you attribute it to, how you attribute those problems. You go also back to something we discussed some episodes ago, and that's the notion of the fact that people are not signing up to be teachers and other people are leaving to not be teachers anymore. Evidence, me in May.
That's right.
So, well, thank you. But that's something that has to be addressed and has to be thought about. At the very least, it's a viable question that needs a healthy yet still respectful debate.
Well, you can tell that I tend to side with teachers on this one because there are repercussions to teacher turnover that are, pretty profound right now. And so there are places not where we have taught recently, but other places where teachers do not make a living wage,
right?
And they're technically in poverty and they can't support their families. So I tend towards advocacy if pressed.
Right. But again, it does require a lot of things to be considered when you do that. But yes, I mean, there's no teacher should have to be taking a second or third job to make it in this world. No teacher should be in inordinately bad situations. There should be some voice there.
Well, particularly if you're supporting a family. I mean, for 25 years, I did, but I also did heavy moonlighting for all of those, to be supporting a family. And if you have a second income, then it changes a little bit. But it's certainly a consideration. And as you get closer to retirement, that would be the sad part. You keep working, maybe take another teaching job until you're 75, and because the retirement isn't good enough to support you full time.
75 and bitter.
Yeah.
And angry.
That sounds like you right now. What the heck?
Let me tell you something. I'm neither bitter nor angry. I will say, because right now I'm having to grade essays that my students wrote last week. But I am somewhat emboldened by the fact that this is the penultimate bunch of essays I will ever grade for the rest of my life.
Wait a minute. There's like 4 months of school and you're not going to grade anything until the end of the year?
I'm going to grade one more batch of essays. We're doing one more essay in a few weeks that the kids have to do in preparation for the AP exam. But then after that, I'm not saying I'm not grading stuff. I'm not grading essays.
Sounds like it. Sounds like you're just checking out. You're going to be wearing a Hawaiian shirt to class or
It's gonna be
something.
like Mark Harmon, yeah.
Watching the scoreboard.
You know what? I think I'm going to try to find me some Hawaiian shirts just so I can start wearing them on those last days.
You're not going to do it.
Yes, I am.
Oh, you're not. You don't like to draw attention to yourself, Ross. I'm
That's
surprised
true.
you would do that.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. Damn it, you're right. You're always right.
Always got to be the center of attention.
What did Teddy Roosevelt's daughter say? She wrote that her father wanted to be the bride at every wedding and the corpse at every funeral. So it's
so weird.
That cannot be said of me. But
okay,
what are you gonna do? So, all right. So that's a topic done, but not quite dusted. I don't think.
Put that one to bed. I don't know what the heck I'm talking about here.
I certainly don't. That's why I had to ask questions.
Yeah, but, really, I noticed that you were kind of driving the. No, you had some good points here, Miller.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, as we go into the weekend, we come out of this winter freeze that we have been in the past few days. Did you know that we were in a winter freeze? You tend to be an indoor cat. I'm wondering if you actually knew there was cold temperatures outside and snow and ice on the ground.
I stay in one room and I stare at 3 computer screens and my piano. That's about it.
That's so sad.
I heard, but I've not stepped a foot out of doors for the last 3.5 days.
You don't feel any compunction? You don't feel any kind of innate drive to just step out and just take a deep breath of nice, fresh, cold air?
No, you'd fall right on your ass. I mean, it's really bad out there. I can see it. My dog has slipped several times just going out.
Dogs will bounce right back up. They're like babies. It's no big deal.
Yeah, but I don't want. If I walked on that at my age, come on. Now,
you've been in a hospital.
That's right. Yep. Then I'd be a goner for sure.
All right. Well, what's that?
On that happy note.
As you stay hidden behind your office chair, hoping the zombies don't come, we shall bid adieu, and I wish you a great weekend, Herr Dr. Bourgeois.
Danke, Herr Miller. Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.